Hi, everybody. Dom Tiberi, joined by Adam King and former Buckeye players Devere Posey and Dane Sanzenbacher, two outstanding receivers with the Buckeyes. I want to start with the players, and I get a little fired up by this because I've had Buckeye fans coming up to me, and I don't want to say Adam's not one of them that's been doing this, but hey, the Buckeyes are favored by 21. They act like they're just going to roll the ball out there, and Michigan's going to roll over, and it's just going to be a cakewalk.
Why did I get caught in the crossfire there?
I'm just saying, you're not one of them.
I'm not one of them.
Sure. But I hope no one is listening to that nonsense, because you guys played in the game. You know the records don't matter, do they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ask Antoine Whitfield about a guy named Bishop Biaka Patuka. They were ranked very high, number 2 in the country. Ohio State is on its way to the national championship. He has a career day. In rivalry games, everything goes out the window. It's all about Ohio State versus Michigan. More importantly, the past record that's been online. We're 0-3 versus these guys in the last 3 years. Like, if being more than a national championship, being a part of this rivalry and getting one pair of gold pants isn't on these players and coaches' mind, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I think the one record you do want them to remember is that one.
Yes.
Is their record against Michigan. And you've talked to coaches and players all week. This is not one that's going to be lost on them. I think you're going to have it all week. The fans are going to be fired up. You're going to have a group of people who are going to think that Ohio State's supposed to roll, and frankly, they should. I mean, this is a good team. If they play up to their potential, that's where they match up. But I don't think you'll hear anybody in the locker room, coaches or players, taking the bait on that.
What do you think, Adam, what do you think Ryan Day's telling his guys? Because, you know, in the world we live in, they see that they're 21-point favorites and the betting line keeps going up. Everyone's loving the Buckeyes. They're anointing this team and not going to be close and all this. And then you hear the coach up at Michigan saying, well, last time I checked, it's the same guys down there that we beat the last 3 years.
That's true.
And all.
That's what he said.
What does Ryan say?
Well, I think it's interesting because there hasn't been much said this week, and I don't think there needs to be anything said. It's the idea that look at the logos behind us, Dom. These two teams could be 0-11. It would still be the greatest rivalry in sports. That's very helpful for the Buckeyes because I'll say this. If Michigan didn't wear maize and blue and you put this team on paper, you would probably treat it the same way you looked at Northwestern, Absolutely. The same way that you looked at Purdue. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be, okay, they got to get through this game before they go to Oregon, and, you can't have a sleeper in your final home game. Instead, they know that this is Michigan. They know they've lost the last 3 years. This is the chance to go out there, and it's their ceremony if they want it.
You players played in the game. In the world we live today, everything's there on social media. You see it. Yeah. What do you think the Buckeye players are thinking, though? Is there any chance that it's leaking in their head? We're just going to go roll on these guys. It's going to be payback day. I mean, Ryan's got to guard against that. But what about the players? You could tell them till they're blue in the face, but until they go experience it. And the one thing I've learned in 43 years of covering this series is the better team doesn't always win.
Yeah. Fool me once, it's on me. Fool me twice, fool me once, it's on you. Fool me once again, it's on me. I don't think this team is fooled by Michigan. They want this win. And it's okay for them to be like, hey, we really want to beat these guys more than anyone else because they've had to walk in this. They've had to walk these streets. Coach Earl Bruce would always say, if you lose to Michigan, you got to walk in Pearl Alley. You don't get to walk on High Street. They've been storming Pearl for their whole careers. It's time to go ahead and get the front street, get this dub. And I'm fine with them being vocal about it. I'm fine with our guys saying, nah, this is the game we want because, hey, I'm going to be out there screaming, I want this game.
This is an interesting matchup with there being that discrepancy in talent and the years leading up to this, or the year so far leading up to this one. There's as much danger, too, as getting too much caught into overhyping it. Because the reality is Ohio State, if they play their game, they are the better team. Yeah. If they go out and play their game.
Don't play tight.
They don't play tight. If they play their game like this, and so you hate to say, obviously, you want them to get up for it, but truly, there's a lot of distractions this week, and there's always there's different things going on. Your practice schedule is not standing. There's Thanksgiving. I think the focus is going to be the big thing. I don't think it's going to be the getting up for the game. There's no question they want to win this game, and there's no question they're not going to sleep on Michigan. But Devere and I were fortunate enough to play against some Michigan teams that were in turmoil. They weren't their best years. And the more we took those games as this is about us, do our jobs and we'll win, came out on the right end of them. So I think there's things to weigh here. As much as they can keep this a normal week and play their game, I think they're in good shape.
Well, I think that's
you're 4-0 versus Michigan, correct?
Were you?
I'm 3-1.
Oh.
bad question to ask.
7 wins.
I knew where that. I saw the train coming down the tracks. I couldn't get in between it. I apologize. Hey, it's still 7 wins.
You handed me the knife.
With that said, I think you're exactly right, because I think if when you look at this game, Michigan's offense going up against this Buckeye defense it's going to be very tough for the Wolverines to move the ball. And I think Sharon Moore said, they say we can't throw, we find ways to throw. We say we can't run, we find ways to run. This is different. You're making that argument about 3 Michigan teams that were top 5 when the last 3 matchups had playoff implications, Big Ten titles, top 5 matchup. Mm-hmm. This is a whole different world. It's a whole different ballgame. And I think you're right in the regard that this helps Ohio State if they almost take a minute and go back to what they lean on all year long, which is it's about us, it's not about the opponent.
All right, guys, we've been blessed with great weather all season long, and now we're hearing on Saturday it's going to be 19 degrees when we wake up. Wind chill's going to make it even worse. And then at game time, during the game, it's going to be in the low 30s. You both played receivers. Ohio State loves to throw the football.
Yeah.
As a receiver, if it's cold and it's this, and our bodies aren't going to be used to it, this is going to be the first time. What kind of effect could the weather have on the game, fellas?
You want to take this?
Yeah, it stinks. It's not real. It's harder to play in that. Now, cold is better than wet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So cold is a little bit easier, and anymore with the heated benches and sidelines. So it's tough, and it's a factor. And I think weather's the one thing in this game, right? I had lunch with Coach Tress earlier this year, and that was something he said. He's like, you never know if weather comes into a factor in these types of games. I mean, they say throw the records out the window for this one. Yeah, to a certain extent, but when weather comes into play, it is the great equalizer. So, yes, you'll have it on both sides. It is tougher to throw the ball in the cold, but I think also this is a team that has strived to be very balanced throughout the year and get that running game going. So, I mean, I think you're lucky that you have a lot of options.
DeVere, if this game was in, let's say, a dome, or if there was great weather, advantage Ohio State, right?
Yes, I think advantage Ohio State. Cold weather or in a perfect weather place. I think if it was a perfect weather in a dome like in Indianapolis, we would probably be running the ball a lot, also play action, Will getting active, and then Jeremiah Smith down the field. In the cold weather, we're going to be running the ball a lot, play action, Jeremiah Smith downfield. I don't think this stops our game plan at all, and I personally love playing in the cold. The hits got a little harder. You can be a little bit more physical in the run game. As Ohio State, we're running the football, so I'm an extended offensive line out here on the numbers for Boom and Brandon Sane. So that was always me and Dane's mindset going into Michigan games. Hey, if we get 5 or 6 passes, we're happy. But we're used to cold weather run first Michigan games.
Adam, Michigan prides itself on being the physical team. They planted that seed in Ryan Day's head a couple years ago, and I think it bothered him. And the physical toughness and all that. With that said, if the weather is bad, that's perfect running weather. Yeah. Michigan ran the ball pretty well last week against Northwestern. That looks to be the strength of their offense, running the football.
Well, it's not only the strength of their offense, it might just be their only offense. And I think there are Michigan fans that will tell you that their passing game has struggled. And it's gotten better. They looked okay against Northwestern. It's gotten better throughout the year. But their run game is everything to this team this year, and I think you're right. It does benefit Ohio State a little bit if it's super cold, because Michigan can just lean on that run game as much as they need to. I will say and I think I've said this earlier in the year, if I'm going against this Ohio State defense, I'd rather test them in the pass than test them in the run. Because I don't think, that toughness, that physicality, that conversation has been here all year round. That's what they pride themselves on now. Do I think that maybe if you were a long ball attack offense that I'd be a little more worried 100% than I would? Because I think these guys are going to line up, and Michigan's going to run the football, but I think in the end they're not going to be able to move it too much.
And for you two players, I think we can agree the strength of this Michigan football team is its defense, ranked 30th something in the country. The offense is in the cellar. But to me, this game's going to come down to the Ohio State offense Can they move the ball against this defense?
Well, the strength of this Michigan football team is their D-line. They have a potential top 5 draft pick in Mason Graham rushing the quarterback every pass play. And our offensive line has a new starting center in his second start of his career. So when you think about that being the strength of their team, that being the leader on their defense, we have to block him for Ohio State to have anything going in offense. He could play a role of game record if he's not contained early. So if we can handle their defensive line in the pass rush, we can move the football.
Yeah, and I think testing that defensive line too, I'm Ohio State establishing the run game, and this has really been the case most of this year, is so important because a lot of times that is the defense's strength, has been their D-line. It was against Indiana. If you can run into a team's strength, well, now you really have them on their heels because then you can do whatever you want. So it's been the formula all year. Establish this run game. If we can see that early, that opens up their whole offense.
And real quick, the play-action pass. Will Howard's been one of the best in the country at the play-action pass.
And Adam, last thing, we don't know what the weather's going to exactly, the effect it'll have on the game. It's going to be cold. Let's hope there's no rain or snow or any of that. But with that said, I asked Ryan Day the other day when I talked to him, I said, do you have some things? He goes, oh, yeah, we're always working on things. We're going to see some maybe different things on Saturday.
Well, I think we
offensively
100%. I also would argue that the Buckeyes might have unleashed a little bit against Indiana that they weren't expecting to unleash against an Indiana team that was probably not going to be a top 5 matchup at the beginning of this season. I think we saw some things at Northwestern. I mean, when they were in Wrigley and then Emeka Ibuka's looking to throw the football into the end zone, I'm like, okay, well, that's not the last time we've seen that play. Yeah. We've seen Michigan do that in this game where they have beat Ohio State. Gimmicky plays almost, trick plays. I don't know if they're trick, but just, you get the tight end sneaking out on a 4th and 1. You get a flea flicker. So it'll be interesting to see if the Buckeyes take a couple of shots there, especially knowing these guys really have to, for Michigan, watch that run. But then, there goes Jeremiah Smith behind our back.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And I just say play loose and have fun and take it to them. I want to ask you guys, as former players, there's always bad blood between these two teams. But given the history of what happened over the last couple years and the scandal and, were they spying and all that stuff, how is that added to this rivalry, you guys? And how personal do you think Ohio State and the players take that?
For me, I think it goes all the way back to how good C.J. Stroud was and the fear of him unleashing his throwing abilities on you. You cheat the first year, you go to the Final Four and you lose to TCU. The next year you cash out, win a natty. Even when the scandal comes out, and you guys still come and beat Ohio State fair and square. So, I mean, for this senior class, for these older guys, they haven't won yet. So for me, the fact that if I'm one of those guys and I feel like, hey, we had a quarterback that's a generational quarterback, possibly the greatest quarterback to ever come to Ohio State, and they cheat and beat us, and then they came out and it was fair and square, and then they beat us again, I can't leave this place without a win. I wouldn't be able to sleep the night before or even the night after because I gave all of my effort, right? It's one of those scenarios where it's like, I'm willing to do anything to win. I will scratch, claw, bite, whatever to win.
Dan, you got your mean face on. I want to. You're fired up.
Because it's dawning on me that that's the danger for this Ohio State team.
Yes.
You want something that bad too. That's why I think the challenge all week is going to be sticking to who they are. They are the better team. If they play relaxed, they play their game, it's a foregone conclusion. What you can get caught up in any sport really, but when you want something so bad, you can start to play outside yourself. You can start to do things that you don't usually do. Your breathing gets different. I'm serious. That's like boxers that can relax.
Yeah.
It's just like when you get in those situations, as calm as you can stay. So I think the key really for this Ohio State team is tuning as much of that out. Sure, we all know that. We know the bad blood. We know the cheating allegations. We know all that stuff. Stay out of those weeds, play your game. You can reflect on it later because I think that can work against them if they go too far down that path.
You don't need motivation, do you?
Exactly
you don't need, you're already motivated, but I mean, you don't want. Can you get too motivated?
Yes, absolutely. Because the other thing you have to remember is, on paper, you're the better team. I mean, and allowing yourself to play down to a competition or to stoop down to the level of these guys cheated, we've got to go beat them. These guys are the worst. You're better. Just go play the game. As you said, don't allow it to become. And then what happens is you let Michigan get in your head. And that's how they get an advantage in this game, is to take a good team and to have them spend the game more worried about who's on the other sideline. Oh, my gosh, what if I fumble the ball? I think back to last year before the game, and there were some conversations that were had, don't mess up. Don't make the mistake. That can't happen.
You know what? I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Adam,
No, you're fine.
Part of it, too, is this might be a tough year for Ohio State to play at home. Because I say that because they're going to feel the first thing that goes our energy.
They're going to feel the fans.
So fans, if you're going to the game, you're going to play a role here because the first time things don't go right, you can feel it in that stadium. That like, oh no, not again. So there's a lot of weight on this game that the goal of this player should be tune out as much as possible. If Michigan makes some plays early, do not listen to us.
And they're going to.
I mean, they're going to. So that's like bracing yourself for taking as much emotion out of this particular game as you can.
I will also say, I think that's what makes a championship team, and I think we're going to learn a lot about the Buckeyes. If they can go out there and just play the game as opposed to letting all that get to them, it's going to help.
Well, I got to ask, because I'm the guy that was always in the scrums and fights. Dane, how did you stay calm in big games? Because I got so hyped all the time, every time. I'm the guy that pushes.
Did you ever get a flag thrown?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't get flags because Dane would normally.
Because he would do it when the cameras weren't looking.
Dane will pull me out of there. But for games like this with past
Did you
history,
talk much trash?
I was an excellent trash talker. It's probably the best.
It
part
all
of my
makes
game.
sense now.
Did you talk trash?
Hardly.
No,
Only
Dane
when I
didn't say
had
a
to.
word.
I had to save face sometimes when they're like, they got me on that one.
I want to go back to something you just said, and this is for the fans out there watching this. You have a job. You're the 12th man.
Yes.
You paid a lot of money to go to this game. And I don't know if you heard what Coach Cignetti said last week, but he said they had to go to the silent count, and it changed everything for them. If you're going to the stadium, you got to do your part as the 12th man. You're on this team. You have to make noise because as players, you guys feed off the fans, don't you?
Yes,
and if the other team can't hear the count, you guys played offense, that's miserable, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's hard to operate, and it's hard to operate effectively at a fast speed. For a 2-minute drill, when everything is signs and everything is communication, when you have a loud crowd, it just really rocks the offensive operations.
Well, the silent count also helps the defense. It allows them to kind of get a jump, and we saw at
Maybe
Penn
get their signs.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's legally get their signs.
Too early.
But no, you're exactly right, and they delivered against Indiana.
So there's no bigger game, and for you Buckeye fans, there is no bigger game. And trust me, these guys played. They feed off your energy. When they make a big play and you go nuts in the stands, then they want to go. The next guy wants to go make it, and you get the goosebumps. You get the goosebumps as players, don't you?
Yeah, that energy from the Indiana game last week, if that can be doubled, that's enough. I mean, I was in the stadium and I hadn't heard it like that in a while, especially on the punt return. I mean, the place was rocking, and from then on, obviously, as Coach Cignetti said, it made a difference. So that is the role to play. If you can, for one game as a fan, take off your critic hat and play as part of the team, you'll have a huge factor in
Well,
a game like
Dom's
this.
up in the press box throwing popcorn every touchdown. We try to get him
He
to
does
dial
his
that. They
part.
can't hear you up there.
You got to leave now, Dom. All I know is yes, it is entertainment. Sports is entertainment. But this isn't a movie. You don't wait till the end to clap. You need to be involved. You're the 12th man for a reason. Great stuff, guys, and hopefully Ohio Stadium is rocking so bad the Wolverines don't ever want to come back down here again, and hopefully we're talking about a huge win over that team up north. Keep it on 10 TV, 97.1 The Fan for all your Buckeye coverage needs.